2 years ago, the Department of Communication Studies was engaged in strategic planning for its future research and curricular development. We currently have an active area of political communication, and one of the topics within that area that piqued our interest during this process was the study of Hispanic political behavior and the increasingly large role that Hispanics can and will play in the electoral process. Another topic which we identified as critical to improving our program was studying the influence new media plays on the political discussion and voter decision-making, both formal and informal. Now imagine our pleasure and excitement when we discovered a scholar who was actively teaching and conducting research combining both areas. And imagine our even greater pleasure and excitement when we were able to bring to KU this fall as a Langston Hughes visiting professor, Professor Alcides Velasquez. Let me tell you a little bit about his background and research interests. A native of Colombia, Professor Velasquez has obtained education both there and in the United States. He received a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy from the Universidad de los Andes in Bogota. Then he received a Master of Science in Information Design and Technology from the Georgia Institute of Technology. And finally, a PhD in Media and Information Studies from Michigan State University. Funding for his doctoral study was by people in this room, by both the Colombian government and a Fulbright Fellowship. At his home institution, he is currently an assistant professor in the Department of Communication Studies at Universidad, here we go again, I'll murder it, but what the heck, Javeriana. You can correct it, I apologize. Professor Velasquez is interested in how social media can be used to accomplish political change. Within that interest, he is focused on the use of social media by youth and how their use can contribute to individual and social activism. New page, come here. He has authored or co-authored 13 published works since 2010. Some in the most prestigious journals focusing on communication and technology. Examples of his publication include Social Media and Online Political Discussion, The Effect of Cues and Informational Cascades on Participation in Online Political Communities, and Youth Collective Activism Through Social Media, both of these articles published in the journal New Media and Society. Today, as you can see up on the screen, the title of his presentation is Follow Us: Understanding Social Media Individual and Collective Political Participation and Activism. Now, normally at this point, one might ask audience members to turn off their cell phones and other mobile devices. I think it's most appropriate in the spirit of the topic that we will hear today that I ask you to turn them on, encourage you to turn them on in anticipation of the tweets that you will be sending live as his talk unfolds. It's my great pleasure to present to you Professor Alcides Velasquez.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Tom, for your generous words. Before I start, I would like to thank the professors, students, let me turn this on. Professors, students, and staff in the Communication Studies Department, the members of the Langston Hughes Visiting Professorship Committee, the Department of Political Science, and the Office of the Provost, the Office of Diversity and Equity. Today I'm going to be talking about the work I have been developing during the last 3 to 4 years and the new directions I would like that work to take, which is what I have been working on with some colleagues here in the Communication Studies Department. The title of my presentation is Follow Us: Understanding Social Media, Individual and Collective Political Participation and Activism. So social media has become an important tool for political participation during the last years. We can see different examples, such as the Indignados in Spain, the students' movement in Chile, the Occupy Wall Street movement here in the United States, the Arab Spring, and more recently here in the United States, the Black Lives Matter movement. All these examples illustrate the important role that social media has now for different types of political participation, especially among youth. Those born between the 1980s and the year 2000 are the ones, the so-called millennials, are the ones that are most present now on social media and are the ones that currently engage more on different types of political behaviors through social media. Previous findings in previous studies suggest that social media political participation is acting as some sort of gateway for more traditional forms of political participation. So if social media has this mobilizing effect on political participation on youth, how can we motivate participation, political participation among a population that has been traditionally at the margins of traditional forms of political participation? I am thinking about Latinos. Latinos now represent 17% of the US population. They are the second largest ethnic group or ethnic or race here in the US after whites. Between the years 1993 and 2013, the number of Latinos younger than 18 years old more than doubled. It increased in 107%. Compared with an increase of just 11% among the general US population younger than 18. So basically that means that more than 800,000 Latinos turn 18 any given year. However, if we look at the political participation patterns of Latinos here in the US, we can see how they are lagging behind whites and blacks. Here we can see, for example, how their level of involvement in civic groups is significantly lower compared to that of whites and blacks. If we look at civic communications, which basically is signing petitions, contacting government officials, or calling a radio or TV show, we can see how Hispanics are still behind blacks and whites, and the difference with whites is statistically significant. Voting behaviors follow the same pattern. We can see here how between the year 1996 and 2012, voting has somewhat increased among Latinos, but they are very much behind the voting patterns of blacks and whites. If we look at online political participation, the picture is very similar. Here, for example, we can see how regarding online political discussion, Hispanics are also behind, significantly behind whites in their reported levels of engagement in online political discussion, and also behind blacks regarding online political discussion. The difference between whites and Hispanics is statistically significant. It is not statistically significant between blacks and Latinos, but still the difference is around 6 percentage points. If we look here at the reported level of participation or political participation on social networking sites, we can see how still Latinos are behind both whites and blacks. The difference is significant with whites and non-significant with blacks, but still is 9 percentage points. So basically we can see how Latinos currently are not engaging in any, they are engaging much less compared to whites and blacks in online political participation and offline political participation. What's interesting though is that Latinos are as engaged as blacks and whites in social networking sites and Twitter, or in general social media. Here we can see, for example, 72% of Latinos report that they are users of social networking sites. 68% of whites and 68% of blacks. So Latinos use more social networking sites. They don't use Twitter as much, but the difference is not that big compared to blacks and they use it even more compared to whites. So again, if we can see that Latinos are engaged on social media, but they don't engage on political behaviors through social media, how can social media political participation be motivated among Latinos? Well, first we need to understand what are the mechanisms that explain social media political participation. That's the work I have been doing during the last 4 to 3 years, basically looking at theories of social media political participation. Let me drink a little bit of water now. So, political participation has been usually approached from 2 different theories. First, resources-based theory, which basically looks at the different resources that people have, financial, social, human, the different types of resources and how those are associated with political participation. So we usually find in data that those that have higher levels of income and higher education tend to participate more in politics. Well, this theoretical approach suggests that this is the case because those people have more resources. They have more money and they have more time because they have more money to engage in different types of political behaviors. They have more knowledge and they have more, in general, cognitive resources. One type of resource that explains political participation are cognitive resources. Examples are, internal political efficacy. The other theoretical approach is the incentives-based approach. Basically, this approach looks at the expected outcomes or the potential consequences that engaging in particular types of political behaviors are going to bring to people, and how, based on that cost-benefit calculation, people decide to participate or not to participate. So as I was saying, one of these important concepts when we look at cognitive resources that can help us understand why people engage in political participation is the concept of internal political efficacy. The concept is defined as individuals' belief that they can understand and influence their political environment. This concept from political science has been used in different cultures and contexts to explain different types of political behaviors, including voting. When we look at previous studies looking at online political participation and social media political participation, we can see how some of these scholars have tried to explain social media or online political participation through the concept of internal political efficacy. However, these studies have reported mixed findings. Some of these studies have found that indeed internal political efficacy influences positively online political participation, while other studies have not been able to find this particular relationship. My interpretation of these conflicting findings is that probably what happened was that they tried to use the concept of internal political efficacy. They tried to use that concept to explain online collective political behaviors in some cases, and the concept of internal political efficacy is defined at the individual level of agency. In other words, it allows us to understand political behaviors at the individual level, individual political behaviors, but not collective political behaviors. This is one of the shortcomings or the flaws of the concept of internal political efficacy. So in my research, I have used the concept of efficacy, but from a social cognitive theory perspective. Social cognitive theory is a theory that comes from social psychology and has the concept of efficacy as one of its central concepts. The theory, social cognitive theory, has been previously used in the communication field to understand and explain media effects, and also in the health communication field in order to design different campaigns that would affect efficacy perceptions of people that at the end would affect also their health, their behaviors related with their health. The concept is defined as beliefs in one's capabilities to organize and execute the courses of action required to produce given attainments. So basically, social cognitive theory defines efficacy as the perceived capabilities that one can take the different actions necessary in order to attain a particular objective that we have set for ourselves. The social cognitive theory is a theory that is aimed at explaining both behavior and behavioral change. So I have used this theory, and from a social cognitive theory, I have tried to somehow critique the concept of internal political efficacy and its application in the context of social media political participation. So one of the interesting characteristics of social cognitive theory regarding the concept of efficacy is that it defines the concept regarding specific domains of action. So it is not a contextless global disposition, but it refers to context-specific situations. So if we are thinking about efficacy perceptions in regards to social media political participation, we would define that concept as the perceptions, the individual's perceptions or perceived capabilities that people can actually use social media to influence their political environment. Also, the theory has this concept of collective efficacy in order to explain collective agency. So first we have the concept of self-efficacy, this concept would explain individual behaviors and the individual behavioral change, and then we have the concept of collective efficacy that explains collective agency. The concept of collective efficacy would be defined as individuals' perceived capabilities that their group can perform the different actions necessary to attain the objective that the group wants to attain. So the concept of efficacy has different sources. We acquire efficacy beliefs depending on the different behaviors or behavioral domains. And these perceptions, these efficacy perceptions, come from different sources. Some of these sources are successful in active experience or, vicarious learning or observational learning. So basically, having successful experiences in the particular behavior we are examining that influences positively our perceptions of what we are capable of. And vicarious learning, which basically is seeing others be successful in a particular behavior that's going to influence our own efficacy perceptions. Those two are possible sources of efficacy perceptions. And then in the theory, we also have expected outcomes, which basically act as incentives for engaging in particular behavior. So the theory suggests that behaviors can be explained not only in terms of efficacy perceptions, but also in terms of expected outcomes. So basically the reason why I chose social cognitive theory, a theory that is not related with political participation, but that comes from social psychology, to understand a particular type of political behavior was basically because it has this approach of resources, in this case cognitive resources, and also this incentives-based approach with the concept of expected outcomes. So in my study, I propounded two new concepts. The concept of social media political self-efficacy, defined as individuals' perceptions that they, as individuals, are capable of using social media to attain their political objectives. And the concept of social media collective political efficacy, defined as individuals' perceptions that their group is capable of using social media to attain the group's political objectives. In the first part of this study, we looked at how successful and active experiences using social media for political participation influenced positively social media political efficacy perceptions. So basically, we look at how people that have previously experienced people that have had positive experiences using social media for political purposes increased or rather had higher levels of social media political efficacy. Also, I wanted to see at I wanted to look at the relationship between social media political efficacy and how it influenced social media political participation. And I also wanted to compare social media political efficacy with internal political efficacy, looking at how they behaved as predictors of social media political participation, with the hope of finding that social media political efficacy, the concept that I was propounding, behaved or was a better predictor than internal political efficacy. So in this study, we collected data from students, members of 3 political and activist groups at Michigan State University. We surveyed members of the MSU College Democrats, MSU College Republicans, and members of an environmentalist group called MSU Beyond Coal. We had 222 participants in the survey. So in our first, we did a set of analysis and of regression analysis, and we in the first analysis we found how successful experience using social media for political participation was positively related with social media political self-efficacy. So here in the second block, when we added successful experience, we found how it came out as significantly related with social media political self-efficacy. Then, I wanted to look at the relationship between social media political self-efficacy and social media political participation. Here we have internal political efficacy and general social media use. In the third block, when we add social media political self-efficacy, the relationship between internal political efficacy and social media political participation decreases, and social media political self-efficacy comes out as positive and significant. Then I also wanted to look at the relationship between successful experiences using social media for political participation and its relationship with internal political efficacy. I wanted to do this because I suspected that maybe successful experiences using social media for political participation and its relationship with internal political efficacy could potentially explain some of the findings in previous studies regarding how online political participation was related with offline political participation. Maybe I don't have enough evidence, but this suggests that maybe the path would be through internal political efficacy, through an increase of internal political efficacy. And then finally, we looked at the relationship between social media political self-efficacy and social media political participation, and the relationship between internal political efficacy and social media political participation. Both relationships are positive and significant, as theory would suggest. But this difference between the coefficients of the correlations, we found that this difference is significant. This means basically that social media political self-efficacy has a stronger relationship with social media political participation compared to the relationship between internal political efficacy and social media political participation. We used a Steiger's Z test to test for the difference between the two correlations. So in short, what we have here is how successful experiences using social media for political participation influence or are positively related with efficacy perceptions, both social media political efficacy perceptions and internal political efficacy perceptions. Efficacy perceptions, social media efficacy perceptions are positively related with social media individual political participation, and the relationship between social media political efficacy and social media individual political participation is stronger than the relationship between internal political efficacy and social media individual political participation. So basically, having successful positive experiences, being satisfied with your experiences using social media for political participation are going to make you feel more capable of using social media for political action. In the second part of this study, we wanted to look at the relationship between collective political efficacy and collective political participation. In this part, we also wanted to look at, based on social cognitive theory, how social media political efficacy was related with social media collective political efficacy. Social cognitive theory suggests that collective efficacy perceptions are rooted on self-efficacy perceptions, which is why we wanted to confirm this in the context we were looking at here. So we wanted to see how social media collective efficacy was related with social media collective political participation, but something that we found interesting was trying to find if the perceived level of interdependence in the group was acting as a moderator of the relationship between efficacy and participation. Basically, what we wanted to see was if people that perceived that others in the group depended on them and that they depended on others in the group, if those that have had higher interdependent perceptions, for those the effect of collective efficacy was stronger compared to those that had lower levels of perceived interdependence. In the first regression, here we can see how social media political self-efficacy is positively related with collective efficacy perceptions. Then in the following analysis, we found how social media collective political efficacy in the second block was positively and significantly related with collective political participation through social media. And then when we added the interaction term here, we found how it came out significant, but still social media collective political efficacy was still positive and significant. So in conclusion, we supported this idea that there's an effect or there's a relationship between social media collective political efficacy and collective participation through social media, but that relationship is moderated or depends on the perceived level of interdependence of the members of the group. And it does make sense. The more I feel that my work in the group, that my participation in the group, and that the success of the group depends on others and that others depend on me, then the perceptions of collective efficacy become more influential. So here's a summary of the findings. Social media political self-efficacy is related with social media political self-efficacy is related with social media collective political efficacy, and social media collective political efficacy is related with social media collective political participation, but that relationship is moderated by the perceived level of interdependence in the group. In a second study, which hasn't been published yet, but we hope to have this submitted to a journal early next year, we wanted to look at another source of efficacy perceptions, vicarious learning. So basically, observing others using social media successfully for political discussion. In this case, we focused only on political discussion through social media. In the previous study, we looked at political participation through social media in general. That included political discussion and also included other types of political participation, such as mobilizing efforts. So here we wanted to look at vicarious learning as another source of efficacy, and we propounded the concept of social media political discussion efficacy, defined as perceived capabilities that a person can use social media to express their political opinions and convince others about their political views through social media. And we also added expected outcomes as other concepts that would explain social media political discussion. So in this case, we had the resources, which were social media political discussion efficacy, and the incentives, which were we focused on three only. The social cognitive theory proposes more, but we focused only on three: status, novelty, and social expected outcomes. This study, we collected data in Colombia. We designed a survey, and we collected data in 10 different cities in Colombia using a multi-step stratified random sample technique. It's a representative sample of the adult urban population of Colombia. We had around 602 participants in the study. So first, we wanted to look at vicarious learning as a potential predictor of social media political discussion efficacy. We found that indeed observing others using social media for political discussion successfully increased perceived levels of political discussion efficacy. Interestingly, I find this interesting. So we also controlled for media use, but when we added media use, basically watching, reading, listening to different types of news media, when we added vicarious learning, the relationship between media use and social media political discussion efficacy came out as non-significant. The relationship then between vicarious learning and social media political discussion efficacy was significant and positive. In the other analysis, we looked at social media political discussion efficacy and the three expected outcomes I mentioned earlier: social expected outcomes, status expected outcomes, and novelty expected outcomes. Only the last two, status and novelty, were positive and significant. This basically means that the more people feel that others are going to admire them and that they're going to feel important, or that they're going to gain the respect of others in social media because of their social media political discussion, they are going to tend to express more their political opinions through social media. Novelty expected outcomes refer to finding new information, learning about new perspectives, or learning about new political or different political views. And we see how that is positively related with social media political discussion. So expecting that people are going to learn about new things, discover new political perspectives, etc., that is going to influence positively expressing political views on social media. However, we found that social expected outcomes the coefficient was negative, but it was not significant. But the fact that it was negative is interesting. It means basically that people don't think that expressing political views through social media is going to make them friends. So the potential social consequences of expressing political views on social media might be negative and might act as a disincentive for expressing their political opinions on social media. However, the coefficient is not significant, but I think it does make sense that, and it is kind of related with other theories like the spiral of silence. So, a review of the findings. We found how being able to see others using social media for political expression, for political discussion, using social media effectively for political expression, that is going to influence our own perceptions of what we are capable of doing through social media when we express our political opinions. We found that social media political discussion efficacy was positively related with social media political discussion, and that at least 2 incentives or expected outcomes were related with social media political discussion. Status, feeling admired by others, feeling that more important, that's going to influence positively the likelihood of engaging in social media political discussion, and finding new information, learning about new political perspectives, that is going to also influence positively social media political discussion. So, back to the beginning. How can the use of social media for political purposes be motivated among Latinos? This is basically what we have been working on together with Andrea Quenet and Ashley Modiman during the last months. So the data that I just presented has an important limitation, and it is that it's cross-sectional. Not only I cannot claim any causal relationship, but more importantly, I cannot claim any causal direction. We don't know if successful experiences using social media for political participation increase, or make people feel more capable, or if it's people that are more capable, the ones that are having positive experiences. We don't know yet if efficacy perceptions are the ones that are influencing actual participation, or if it's the people that participate more, the ones that have higher levels of efficacy. So in order to find out what's the direction of the causality here, we need to design a longitudinal study, and that's what we have been working on during the last months. Also, if we actually want to motivate social media political participation among Latinos, we are going to have to design some sort of intervention or quasi-experiment and manipulate somehow the sources of self-efficacy and also the expected outcomes. The way I think we can do that is by manipulating not only the interaction that people have with other people through social media, but especially the type of feedback that they get from the system. So basically, how do people know that they had a good experience using social media for political participation? Well, not only from their interactions with other people, but also from the information that they get from the system. How many my post, how many likes did I get? How many times was my post commented? How much was it shared? How much my tweet was retweeted? All that information acts as a feedback that we get and that help us assess our level of success during our social media interactions. The same for expected outcomes. If we know that status expected outcomes are playing an important part here, then feeling more important because my post was commented a lot or had a lot of likes, that is going to influence my status perception, my perceptions that I actually got a higher status when I participated in politics through social media. Novelty expected outcomes, I think, would have to be more based on the type of information that people read and consume through social media. So basically, in order to be able to increase participation through social media by Latinos, we're going to have to design some sort of social media application that would allow us to control the type of feedback that people get and see how that influences the different sources of efficacy, influences perceptions of self-efficacy, and the expected outcomes. All this with the hope that the more people engage in social media political participation, the more they will participate in traditional types of political participation. That's it. I would like to acknowledge my co-authors and collaborators and my colleagues, Robert LaRose from Michigan State University, Hernando Rojas from University of Wisconsin-Madison, Andrea Quinet and Ashley Modiman from University of Kansas. Again, thank you for having me here as a Langston Hughes visiting professor. This has been a fantastic experience for me. And now it's time for Q&A. So, yeah.
So, Professor Velasquez, Latino, just like the word Hispanic,
right,
which means Spanish speaker, broadly speaking, but Latinos are so diverse.
Yeah.
So how does your study count for the diversity? There are Afro-Cubans, Puerto Ricans, there are numerous kinds of different
identities
communities within the larger framework, which often in the United States gets lumped together as this one thing. The largest being population at this moment being Mexican Americans. So how do you all disaggregate this diverse body?
So I've been thinking about the issue of actual identity with this Latino label. How do people actually identify with this label of Latino, or do they identify rather as people from Colombia or Colombian origin or Mexican origin? And I think that's going to be an important aspect to take into account when looking at, for example, collective types of behaviors. If we look at, if we're going to look at collective participation, political participation, I think it's going to be very important to take into account how the social identity of Latinos, and if they actually do identify with this type of label, or with which types of causes do they actually identify.
Would you situate language within your studies? For example, are the Hispanics communicating with other Hispanics in their use of social media? Are these intercultural transactions, or who are the people on the other end?
Right. So I am not aware of any. So your question was about language and basically who are Hispanics interacting with through social media. I am not aware of any studies. I don't remember if the Pew Research Center data gives us that information. I could speculate. My guess is that they are interacting socially with friends. I don't know if in Spanish or in English or in what type of language. I don't know if with people from or in the United States or somewhere else in the world, but I could only speculate. Yeah.
Professor Velasquez, when you were conducting your surveys, did you ask at all about external forms of motivation for participation?
Right, so you're asking about external motivations for participation. What do you mean by external forms of motivations?
Along the lines of, why did you participate in the sense of someone asked me to, or I felt a particular need at this point to participate? Okay,
so external forms of participation basically mean like being invited or asked to participate. So my impression from social cognitive theory would be that that would be taken into account as a social incentive, because if I am asked to participate in some particular type of political behavior, if my friend or my wife or girlfriend or whomever asks me, well, I'm going to do it because I know what the outcome of not participating is going to be, right? So it's going to act as a social expected outcome, which is taken into account in the theory. Yes.
How did you choose the social media sites that you use?
Right.
Because social media varies. Like there are social media sites for particular cultures,
Mm-hmm.
etc. So how did you choose those, and how are you choosing those in the future?
Right. So you are asking about the how did I choose the social media applications that I looked at. So basically for the groups at Michigan State University, I went online and looked at the different types of social media platforms that the groups were using, and I chose the ones that they had in common. So basically Facebook and Twitter. And for the data in Colombia, I just chose Facebook and Twitter because those two are the most commonly used in Colombia. Instagram is not that commonly used, at least not yet, and it's not very much used. Yes.
How exactly do you define social media political participation?
Mm-hmm. The question is, how do I define social media political participation? So political participation has been defined as comprised by three different types in general of political participation. So political discussion is one possible definition of political participation. Trying to convince others of how to make a decision. So for example, writing a letter to a government official is some type of way that one can influencing attempts is the way that one is called. And the other one is direct decision making. The typical example is voting. So the way I looked at social media political participation was using political discussion and influencing attempts through social media. And I added to that issue advocacy, which includes also mobilization, inviting others to participate.
So that would include signing a petition or contacting the online presence of an elected official?
But this was only through social media, so that's something that I didn't. So that's a typical question that you would find in online political participation type of surveys. I didn't include that one because this was only focused on social media, and I don't think it is very common to actually address someone on Facebook or Twitter as like a government official. You would just send an email or something like that.
Can I follow up on that too?
Sure.
I mean, very interesting talk. You have a lot of questions, but just I was thinking of something similar, like the nuances of these terms, because you're talking about social media, become very important, right? Like what counts as successful, what counts as participation.
Right.
And there's that huge other sort of body of literature about, participation politically in the term clicktivism, right? Like it gets better up, changing the color of your avatar and things like that. And what you're finding with that social factor, I guess you could call it, right, is really important because those are so much easier and more visible to do.
Right.
Which is why people find them more used, right? I'm thinking particularly changing the color of your avatar. If my girlfriend asks me to do that, I'm going to be like, sure, I'll do that. It's so easy. And yet I won't lose any friends, right? That negative, that blue that you showed us, I mean, it doesn't really affect these other more robust things that you found as well. I wonder if you could address that, like the certain particularities
of the types of social media political participation that I looked at. So what Jermaine is asking is basically how can I comment on how the different ways in which people engage through social media politically are different in terms of their costs. This is something that we have been discussing for quite a time with Andrea and Ashley. The term slacktivism defined basically as just engaging in some sort of political participation through social media that is not very costly, so that we can feel better with ourselves, and that actually doesn't make much of a difference. And that is going to replace more meaningful forms of political engagement. Those are not the types of behavior or the types of political participation I looked at in my data. I looked at more active ways of engaging in political participation through social media. So trying to convince others, commenting on someone else's post, like more costly types of behaviors that are more that require kind of more effort. Angela.
So I know you and I have talked about offline how you're interested in issues of digital divide, and I was wondering if you could talk about that in relation to your research on social media political participation.
Sure. So you're asking about my other area of research, which is digital divide research, and how that is related with social media political participation. I haven't done yet research on social media political participation and access, or different types of access, but I have looked at, for example, from Colombian data, how online interaction with the government and with government institutions is very much related with what I call autonomy of use. Basically, the quantity and quality of access to the internet that you have. Yeah.
So I think your findings are very interesting. I think they make sense, right? I get something out of my social media use. I'm going to continue using it.
Right.
There's nothing altruistic about social media use. But as a researcher of social media and a practitioner of social media, how could a practitioner of social media take your findings and utilize them?
Right.
Because it makes sense to me. I like it, I use it. I don't like it, I don't use it.
So you're asking, as a practitioner of social media,
how are your findings
relevant for someone? So when you say practitioner, you mean someone that uses social media?
So no.
Or works? Okay. Gotcha. Well, in terms of what I was saying at the end, learning about the motivations of your users, identifying the different motivations that your users have, or the expected outcomes, and also knowing how much people value their own experiences and how they get information of those experiences through the system, because at the end, or through the content that they consume, because at the end, much of the information that we get about our social media experience is from the interface, from the system. So that's something that maybe a practitioner could use for design implications.
Let's take one more question, and then I would like you to join Dr. Velasquez for food, and you can ask him more personal questions related to his research.
In doing your research, were you able to quantify the degree to which somebody who makes a post on social media feels that their post will be taken seriously or have effect relative to, let's say I write a letter to a politician or call one on the phone? Do people feel like their posts on social media have the same value?
I didn't exactly measure anything that would allow me to compare the difference between those two, because I didn't measure any type of offline political behaviors. But my guess would be that that's going to vary depending on the efficacy perceptions of the person, how capable the person is going to feel. That's going to influence the perceived effectiveness of their behavior.
Let's give another round of applause.